My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Behind me, the noise was deafening, a mixture of a toddler screaming, a 4-year-old banging a wooden spoon against my glass coffee table, and the 7-year-old crying for juice I didn't have. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at the glowing screen in my hand. It had been 3 hours since my sister, Taryn, dropped them off for a 30-minute emergency. 3 hours of chaos. When she stopped answering my calls, I checked Instagram. Nothing. Then, I remembered her old account, the one she didn't think I checked. There it was. A new story, posted 10 minutes ago. The photo showed Taryn's manicured hand, holding a glass of champagne against a first-class airplane window. The clouds outside were thick and white. The caption read, "Finally free. Aloha beaches. Hashtag Mommy Moon." She wasn't at the hospital. She was 30,000 feet in the air, flying to Hawaii for 5 days. She had dumped her 3 children on me without a bag, a diaper, or a plan and fled the state. I looked at the clock. I looked at the kids, who were dirty, hungry, and already destroying my apartment. My chest tightened. I could be the doormat I had always been, or I could do the unthinkable. I didn't call our parents. I dialed 3 digits. 911, what is your emergency? I'd like to report 3 abandoned children, I said, my voice cold. For hours earlier, on the morning of Tuesday the 14th, my life had been perfectly under control. My name is Sloan. I'm 26 years old, a junior architect at a top firm in the city, and I was exactly 1 presentation away from the promotion of a lifetime. I had spent 5 months preparing for the Zoom pitch scheduled for noon. I had 0 margin for error. My apartment was spotless, my notes were ready, and I was in the zone. Then the pounding started. I opened the door to see Taryn, breathless and frantic. She pushed past me before I could even say hello, her 3 kids swarming into my pristine living room like a hurricane. "Thank God you're home," she gasped, checking her watch. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a trench coat that looked too stylish for a panic attack. "It's an emergency. My boyfriend, Sawyer, just called. His appendix burst. I have to get to the hospital right now." "Taryn, I can't," I said, blocking the hallway. "I have a career-defining pitch in 20 minutes. I cannot watch them." "It's just 30 minutes, she cried, forcing a tear. "Please, Sloan, don't be selfish. It's life or death." She didn't wait for an answer. She kissed the kids, promised she'd be back before my meeting started, and ran out the door. I noticed she was wearing heels, strange for a hospital run, but I swallowed my suspicion. I had work to do. The first hour was a nightmare. I tried to set them up in front of the TV so I could focus on my meeting preparation, but Taryn hadn't raised them to sit still. While I was in the bathroom splashing cold water on my face, trying to calm my anxiety, disaster struck. I walked out to find the 2-year-old sitting on my drafting table. He had a permanent black marker in his fist. My blueprints, the only physical copy of the designs I needed for the partner review, were covered in jagged black scribbles. I screamed. I couldn't help it. The toddler started wailing. I grabbed my phone and called Taryn. Straight to voicemail. I called our parents, hoping they could rush over and take them before my call. No answer. They were likely on a cruise. Unreachable. That was when the 7-year-old Leo looked up from the iPad he had found. He looked bored, not scared. "When is Mommy coming back?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Leo shrugged. "Mommy said we're staying here for a week. She packed our bags in the car, but she drove away with them." My stomach dropped all the way to the floor. She had the clothes. She had the diapers. I had nothing. "A week?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said. "She said you were the babysitter now." It wasn't a medical emergency. It was a trap. I needed proof before I did anything drastic. I went into full investigation mode. Taryn was smart, but she was also addicted to attention. I checked her location sharing. She had turned it off. I tried calling the boyfriend, Sawyer, but realized I didn't even have his last name. He was likely a phantom invention to sell the lie. That's when I remembered her Finsta, her fake Instagram account where she posted things she didn't want our judgmental mother to see. I searched for the handle, and there it was, the picture of the champagne. But it wasn't just the photo that made my blood boil, it was the comments below it. Her best friend had commented, "So glad you finally ditched the baggage. You deserve this 5 days of peace." Taryn had replied, "Don't I know it? Little sis is clueless. Phone is going off until I land. Cheers. She was mocking me. She knew I had the biggest meeting of my career, and she didn't care. She saw me as nothing more than unpaid help, a safety net she could abuse whenever she wanted. If I didn't act now, I would lose my job, my sanity, and my dignity. I would be babysitting for a week while she sipped cocktails. I closed the app. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard rage. When the police and the social worker arrived, the humiliation was suffocating. My apartment door was open, and I could see my neighbors peeking out into the hallway, whispering. The officers looked at the chaotic living room, the ruined blueprints, and the 3 crying children. They looked at me, dressed in my business suit, looking pale and shaken. The mother is unreachable, the officer asked, pen hovering over his notepad. She's not just unreachable, I said, holding out my tablet. She's on a flight to Hawaii. I remembered she never logged out of our family iCloud account. I found the confirmation email in her trash folder. She booked a round-trip ticket returning Sunday. I showed him the screen. The officer's eyebrows shot up. The social worker turned to me. Is there any other family? Grandparents? The father? This was the moment. The turning point. I could lie and say I'd handle it, saving Taryn's reputation but ruining my own life. Or I could tell the truth. Our parents are in Europe, I lied smoothly. And I don't know where the fathers are. I work 60 hours a week. I cannot take care of them. Ma'am, the officer said sternly. If you refuse to take them, we have to take them into emergency protective custody. They will go to a temporary foster home. Is that what you want? I looked at the kids. Then I thought about Taryn laughing in first class. I am legally not liable for these children, I said, my voice steady. Please log this as child abandonment. 3 hours later, my phone lit up. Taryn had landed in Hawaii. I watched the screen vibrate on my coffee table. First, it was a text. WTF? Where are the kids? The neighbor says there's a police seal on your door. Then came the calls. 1, 2, 10. Finally, I picked up. I needed her to hear this clearly. You are insane. Taryn shrieked before I could breathe. The background noise of the Honolulu airport was loud. I land and get a voicemail from a social worker. You called the cops on your own sister? I'm going to kill you, Sloan. You abandoned your children, I said, my voice flat. I was sitting in the dark, the adrenaline crash leaving me exhausted. You said it was a medical emergency. You went on vacation. I needed a break, she screamed, not even denying it. I was going to call you once I got to the hotel. You ruined my trip. Go get them right now. Tell them it was a mistake. I can't, I replied. They are wards of the state now. You have to come back, Taryn. And you'd better hurry. The emergency hearing is in 48 hours. I'm not coming back, she yelled. I just got here. Fix this, Sloan, or I will tell everyone you kidnapped them. Enjoy your flight home, I said and hung up. My hand was trembling again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from the realization that she cared more about the vacation than where her children were sleeping. If I thought Taryn's reaction was bad, our parents were worse. They called the next morning from their cruise ship in the Mediterranean. I had lied to the police about them being unreachable to force their hand, but I knew Taryn would get through to them eventually. How could you do this? My mother demanded, her voice tinny over the satellite connection. Taryn called us sobbing. She's distraught. She made a little mistake, and you called Child Protective Services? You've humiliated this family. A little mistake? I asked, gripping the phone. She left a 2-year-old with me and flew to Hawaii. She didn't leave diapers. She didn't leave a power of attorney. If one of them had gotten hurt, I couldn't have authorized medical care. You're always so dramatic, my father chimed in. Your sister is under a lot of stress. Being a single mother is hard. You wouldn't understand. You just care about your career. There was the family dynamic I had lived with for 26 years. Taryn was the golden child, the beautiful, fragile mother who could do no wrong. I was the scapegoat, the cold, unfeeling career woman expected to clean up the mess. I'm not cleaning this up, I told them. If she's such a good mother, she can explain that to the judge tomorrow. I blocked their number. For the first time in my life, I was cutting the cord. Taryn arrived back in the city 10 hours later. She didn't come to get the kids. She came for me. I was working on my laptop, trying to salvage my presentation, when the banging started. It wasn't a knock. It was a violent assault on my front door. She must have realized, or her lawyer told her, that if she didn't return, she would be facing felony kidnapping charges. "Open up, you jealous witch." Taryn screamed from the hallway. I didn't move. I pulled up the Ring camera feed on my phone. Taryn looked deranged. Her hair was messy from the flight, and her eyes were wild. But she wasn't just screaming. She was holding her phone up, live streaming herself. "My sister stole my children," she sobbed to her camera, pivoting instantly from rage to victimhood. She's holding them hostage because she's jealous I have a family and she doesn't. She pounded on the door again. "I'm going to call your boss, Sloan. I'm going to tell them you're unstable. You'll never work in this city again." I sat perfectly still, recording every second of the footage to my cloud storage. She was handing me the evidence on a silver platter. She thought she was intimidating me, but she was just digging her own grave. "Keep screaming, Taryn," I whispered to the empty room. "The judge is going to love this." After 20 minutes, security escorted her out. She left, but the war on my reputation had just begun. 48 hours after the abandonment, we stood in emergency family court. The room was sterile and cold, smelling of floor wax and stale coffee. Taryn sat at the other table with the lawyer our parents had paid for. She looked transformed. She wore a modest dress, no makeup, and sat with her head bowed, clutching a tissue. She looked like the picture of a grieving, confused mother. When the judge asked her to speak, she put on a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling, "this is all a terrible misunderstanding. I asked my sister to watch the children for a few days so I could attend a wellness retreat for my mental health. She agreed. I don't know why she called the police. We had a fight about money last week, and I think she did this to hurt me." The judge, a stern woman with gray hair, looked at me. Her expression was skeptical. In family court, the goal is always reunification. If I couldn't prove she was lying, they would give the kids back to her immediately, and I would be the villain who wasted police resources. Taryn smirked at me when the judge wasn't looking. It was a tiny, imperceptible curl of her lip. She thought she had won. She thought her charm worked on everyone. But she didn't know I had brought receipts. "Ms. Sloan," the judge said, "did you agree to watch these children?" "No, Your Honor," I said, standing up. My legs felt like lead, but my voice was clear. And it wasn't a wellness retreat. I handed my folder to the bailiff. Exhibit A is a screenshot of the text messages from that Tuesday morning, where she claimed it was a 30-minute medical emergency regarding a boyfriend. Exhibit B is her flight confirmation. She booked this trip to Hawaii 3 months ago. This was premeditated abandonment. The judge flipped through the papers. Her frown deepened. She looked at the Instagram photo of the champagne. Then she looked at Taryn. "You booked a first-class vacation while telling your sister it was a medical emergency," the judge asked, her voice dropping an octave. Taryn stammered. I deserved a break. "The children will remain in state custody pending a full investigation," the judge ruled, slamming the gavel. "However, I will place them with their great-aunt Margot, who has volunteered. Ms. Taryn, you are granted supervised visitation only." Taryn gasped. Losing custody, even temporarily, was a blow she hadn't expected. As the bailiff let us out, Taryn leaned in close to me. The sad mother act was gone. Her eyes were black holes of hate. "You think you won," she hissed. "I will destroy everything you have. Watch your back, Sloan." Taryn didn't go quietly. She went to TikTok. Within 24 hours of the hearing, my face was plastered all over local social media groups. Taryn had posted a tearful, ring light-illuminated video titled, "My Sister Stole My Babies." She carefully edited screenshots of our text history, cropping out the timestamps and her flight details, making it look like I had demanded the children and then called the police out of spite. "She's always been jealous," Taryn wept to her 40,000 followers. "She's unstable. She just wants to hurt me." The court of public opinion didn't care about evidence. They cared about tears. The comment section was a cesspool of strangers calling for my head. But the real blow came Monday morning. My boss called me into his office. The head of HR was there, looking grim. "Sloan," my boss said, not making eye contact, "we've been receiving phone calls. People harassing the reception desk about you. We pride ourselves on a drama-free reputation. This is a personal family matter involving the legal system. I tried to explain, my heart hammering against my ribs. I acted to protect children. Regardless, HR interrupted. Until this matter is resolved, we're placing you on administrative leave. And the promotion, well, we're putting that on hold. I walked out of the building carrying a box of my things. Taryn had managed to strip away the one thing I valued most. I sat in my car and screamed until my throat tasted like blood. She wanted war. She was going to get a nuclear winter. I went home, deleted the Instagram and TikTok apps from my phone, and sat in silence. Crying wouldn't fix this. Rage wouldn't fix this. I needed to think like an architect. Taryn's life was a poorly constructed building. From the outside, it looked glamorous, trips, designer clothes, the perfect mom aesthetic. But a structure that heavy requires a massive foundation. Taryn hadn't worked a real job in 4 years. Our parents enabled her, but they weren't wealthy enough to fund first-class tickets and Yves Saint Laurent bags. Where was the load-bearing beam? I pulled out a notepad. I started listing what I knew about the kids. When they were with me, their clothes were ill-fitting and cheap. Leo had a cavity that looked months old. The toddler had no familiarity with books, only screens. Then I remembered the child support. Taryn had 2 ex-husbands. She constantly complained that they were deadbeats who barely paid a dime. But Taryn was a shark in divorce court. She never walked away empty-handed. I opened my laptop and started digging. I wasn't looking for evidence of the abandonment anymore. That was already proven. I was looking for the motive behind the neglect. If she had money, why did the kids look so poor? I realized I didn't need to fight Taryn. I needed to find the people she had been lying to longer than she had been lying to me. Locating the fathers was surprisingly easy. Taryn had blocked them from seeing the kids, but they were still listed on the birth certificates I had access to via the family cloud she forgot to lock me out of. I called Pierce, the father of the 2 youngest, first. I don't want to talk to anyone from that family, he snapped when I identified myself. Taryn already told me you're trying to take custody. I don't want custody, Pierce, I said calmly. I want to know why Leo's teeth are rotting when you pay for dental insurance. There was a long silence. I pay $2,000 a month in support, he said, his voice dropping. Plus $1,500 for that private Montessori school she sends them to. I wanted to visit, but she threatened me with a restraining order every time I tried. She said I was toxic and would traumatize them. Montessori. I looked at the scribbles on my wall. Pierce, Leo doesn't go to school. He told me he watches YouTube on an iPad 10 hours a day. He didn't even know his ABCs. I made the second call to Ryan, the eldest father. Same story. He was terrified of Taryn's legal threats, so he just sent checks for elite tutoring and gymnastics that didn't exist. She's stealing from them, Ryan said, his voice shaking with fury. We need to prove it, I told them. I need bank statements. I need every transfer you've ever sent her. If we combine your records with the state of those kids, we don't just win custody. We send her to prison. By midnight, my inbox was full of PDFs. The alliance was formed. For the next week, I went radio silent. I let Taryn believe she was winning. Her lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the case, citing harassment and claiming I was mentally unfit to care for the children, referencing my breakdown at work. Taryn grew bold. She posted photos of herself shopping for welcome home gifts for the kids. She texted me, "Give it up, Sloan. Mom and Dad hired the best lawyer in the city. You're going to look like a psycho, and I'm going to get my babies back. Just apologize, and maybe I won't sue you for defamation." I didn't reply. I printed the bank statements. I highlighted the transfers, $3,500 for school tuition entering her account, and $3,500 leaving the same day for Saks Fifth Avenue and Delta Airlines. It was a paper trail of theft so blatant it was almost insulting. But I knew Taryn. She was a narcissist. Narcissists never go into a fight without a hidden weapon. She wouldn't just rely on a good lawyer. She would have something dirty. I prepared my binder of evidence, but I felt a knot in my stomach. The calm before the storm was too quiet. She was too confident. As the date of the permanent custody hearing approached, I barely slept. I kept waiting for the other's shoe to drop. The day of the hearing, the atmosphere in the courtroom was suffocating. Taryn walked in wearing a soft pastel cardigan, looking like the Virgin Mary. She smirked at me as she passed. Her lawyer, a slick man in $1,000 suit, stood up as soon as the proceedings began. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "before we discuss custody, we have new evidence that calls into question the safety of the children in Miss Sloane's presence." He walked to the bench and handed over a document. "This is a signed affidavit from a neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, who lives directly across the hall from the petitioner. She states that on the morning of Tuesday the 14th, the day of the alleged abandonment, she heard Miss Sloane screaming at the children and saw her strike the 4-year-old through the open doorway." The room was dead silent. My blood ran cold. Mrs. Higgins? She was an elderly woman I brought groceries to. Why would she lie? "That's a lie," I shouted, standing up. "I never touched them." "Sit down," the bailiff barked. The judge read the paper, her face hardening. She looked at me with disgust. "Miss Sloane, these are serious allegations. If this witness is credible, not only will I dismiss your petition, but I will have you investigated for child abuse." Taryn's smirk widened into a grin. The air left my lungs. The financial fraud wouldn't matter if the judge thought I was the abuser. I was losing. The judge stared at me over her glasses. "I am inclined to suspend these proceedings and order a CPS investigation into Miss Sloane based on this affidavit. Court is in recess for 2 hours to allow counsel to review the document." I stumbled out of the courtroom, my hands shaking. My phone buzzed. It was an email from my boss, forwarded from HR. Subject: urgent legal notification. Body: Sloane, we received a copy of an affidavit alleging child abuse from your sister's counsel. Do not come to the office. Your suspension is indefinite. Taryn's lawyer had leaked it to my job. She had buried me. I wiped my eyes and looked at the copy of the affidavit my lawyer had shoved into my hands. I read Mrs. Higgins' statement again. "On the morning of Tuesday the 14th, I saw Sloane strike the child." My breath hitched. Tuesday the 14th. I closed my eyes, accessing the memory palace I used for architectural specs. Mrs. Higgins was 80 years old. Every Tuesday morning, without fail, her daughter picked her up at 8 a.m. for dialysis. She didn't get back until 2 p.m. Taryn had dropped the kids off at 9 a.m. Mrs. Higgins wasn't even in the building when the alleged abuse happened. Taryn had bought a lie, but she got the timestamp wrong. I started the engine. I had 90 minutes to get a confession. I drove like a maniac to my apartment building. I didn't go to my unit. I went straight to 4B. Mrs. Higgins opened the door, looking nervous. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mrs. Higgins," I said softly, holding up my phone. I had already hit record. "You weren't home on Tuesday morning. You were at dialysis. Your daughter picks you up every week." The old woman crumbled. She started wringing her hands. Your sister. She came by yesterday. She was crying. She said you were hurting those babies. She said if I signed the paper, it would save them. And she gave me $500 for my medication. I'm so behind on my bills, Sloane. Did you see me hit anyone?" I asked firmly. "No," she whispered. "I wasn't here. I'm sorry. I need you to say that into the phone, Mrs. Higgins. Right now." She confessed everything on tape. As I walked back to my car, I saw the thick black binder sitting on the passenger seat. The financial records I had printed days ago. I also had the text report from Aunt Margot, confirming that the emergency dentist she visited yesterday found 3 rotting teeth in Leo's mouth. It was worse than I thought. The tuition payments were being funneled directly into a separate account Taryn had labeled Travel Fund. There were charges for spas, hotels, and luxury car leases totaling over $50,000 in 2 years. I had the bribe. I had the fraud. It was time to burn it all down. When court reconvened, Taryn looked bored. She was checking her cuticles, confident that I was currently hyperventilating in a bathroom somewhere. The judge sat down, looking stern. "Ms. Sloane, unless you have a substantial rebuttal to this affidavit, I am prepared to rule." "We do, Your Honor," my lawyer said, standing up. "We would like to submit a digital recording taken 40 minutes ago. along with dialysis clinic records for the witness. Taryn's head snapped up. The lawyer played the audio file. Mrs. Higgins' shaky voice filled the silent courtroom. She gave me $500. I wasn't here. I lied. The color drained from Taryn's face so fast she looked like a corpse. The judge's expression shifted from stern to thunderous. But we aren't done, my lawyer continued, slamming a heavy binder onto the table. We also have financial records provided by the children's fathers, contrasted with a dental report obtained by their current guardian, Aunt Margot. These documents prove that Ms. Taryn has embezzled over $50,000 in child support while neglecting the children's urgent medical needs. The judge opened the binder. The room was silent except for the turning of pages. Taryn tried to stand up. This is private. You can't. Sit down, the judge roared. It was the first time she had raised her voice. Taryn sank back into her chair. She looked at me, pleading with her eyes. I just stared back, my face stone cold. The judgment was swift and brutal. In 20 years on the bench, the judge said, glaring at Taryn, I have rarely seen such calculated manipulation. You abandoned your children to go on vacation, and when caught, you attempted to destroy your sister's life by suborning perjury. Taryn started sobbing, but these were real tears of terror. I am holding you in direct civil contempt for presenting false evidence to this court, the judge ruled. Bailiff, take her into custody immediately. No, Taryn shrieked as the officer approached her. They're mine. Furthermore, the judge continued, raising her voice over Taryn's screams, I am referring this case to the district attorney's office. You will be investigated for welfare fraud, filing a false police report, and perjury. Full legal and physical custody is awarded to the fathers. The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. Taryn turned to the gallery, where our parents were sitting, pale and trembling. Mom, Dad, fix this. Do something. Our mother looked at the binder of financial evidence. She looked at the judge. Then, she looked at Taryn in handcuffs. For the first time, she saw the monster she had created. She didn't stand up. She didn't speak. She just looked away. 3 months later, the morning sun hit my new drafting table in my new apartment. I had moved to a building with a doorman. No more surprise visits. My life had corrected itself. Once the truth came out and I sent the court transcripts to HR, my company not only reinstated me, but gave me the promotion and a raise as an apology. The drama hadn't ruined my reputation. Standing up for the truth had cemented it. I was known as the woman who didn't blink. I spent my weekends with the kids. They were living with their dads now. Leo had his teeth fixed and was in a real school. The toddler was speaking in full sentences. They were happy. They were safe. I picked up my phone to check my schedule. A news notification popped up at the top of the screen. Local mom Taryn V. Sentenced to 3 years for fraud and perjury. My thumb hovered over the link. I could read it. I could revel in the details of her misery. I could send it to our parents, who were now trying to call me every day, begging for forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. I swiped the notification away without opening it. Taryn was her own problem now. I had blueprints to finish. I turned on my favorite playlist, picked up my pen, and got back to work. I was finally truly free.